And we are live, and I am back in Montreal. Happy Montreal. Feels great. Just getting exhausted. Um, how's it been going, Derek?
It's been going good. We've missed you, Car. You're online regardless, but it's nice to see you again, and to know that you're not on a train or something.
Yes, we're live, wifey. Okay. Um, I just felt like talking. DD Chow, miss it. Besides chatting, just wanted to talk on the podcast with you. Um, so the first thing that came to mind was like one of the topics was the ad drop theory, and we've seen. I like the segment that you've done every week. I think I miss what I miss is uh, what's that line that I say all the time? What are you doing? Or what's the
What are you
line?
doing?
To some of the people. Um,
Yeah,
and yeah, I'll get down to it. You mentioned like I picked up someone and he had power play time, Caleb Jones. I look at that a lot, but he's again a lot of these guys are temporary pickups because he's only getting power play time because his brother Seth Jones is injured. It's kind of funny that they play on the same team. So Caleb Jones probably a drop in the near future, and but I do look at that and I look at their overall time usage because um, some people they they'll play like for less than 16 minutes or something like that. They
yeah,
play on the third or fourth line and maybe they get some power play time. So I definitely and but sometimes the tricky part I've regretted dropping people in the past, like last previous years, because um they are temporarily in like let's say the coach's doghouse per se, like they're in the third, fourth line, and then they rocket back to the first line, go on a hot run, and they're on the first line for the rest of the year. So I've definitely had regrettable decisions because I've focused too much on the last couple of games.
yeah. Like I'll say, like going through the pickups and drops, like I've been very mindful of, like, especially when I'm looking for pickups and drops, it's like, are they getting power play time? Like, it doesn't matter what the line combinations look like, are they getting power play time? And like, I've started to hold back on picking up a lot of second team power play guys, because like a lot of these power plays go out for like 90 seconds, and then the second shift comes in and gets nothing done because they really only have like 10 seconds to get a scoring chance. uh but when you see a guy's getting consistently like 2 minutes of power play a game, worth a look. So I think it's important to kind of keep that all in mind when you are looking at a pickup or drop. But I want to comment quickly on guys you've regretted dropping, because fucking Jamie Benn. I
Yeah.
mean, I I thought that guy was dead. Like, he was doing nothing for like the first 6 or 7 games of the season. And I'm like, oh fuck him. I'm just gonna now, like, 8 points in 3 games. He's back to like point per game. And I'm like, if I mean, that probably wouldn't have changed my matchup last week, and who knows, maybe he stops producing this week. But fuck me.
Right. But like the feel good part is like you can like look at him. He is getting power play time, but he is getting like less than 14, like he's playing 14 minutes a game in the past like 6 7 games, which means
Yeah,
he's unlikely to keep this pace. It's just that he's had that talent in the past, so like, maybe he goes on a tear. But at least like yeah, same thing. Like I dropped McCann, who I loved last year, but his role just like with Seattle playing Beniers and other people over him, but then he scores like 4 goals in 4 games after I drop him. But again, I looked at his ice time. The coach isn't giving him more ice time because of that. So at least I have faith that he's not going to keep up that pace. Um, so you're right. Like when you looked at some people picking up people and like it doesn't seem like the player is specifically good at anything, and maybe they're just like they're on a that's a that's sometimes a weaker pickup when you pick up a guy that's hot, but you look at their stats and they're just like a fourth liner that just got really hot in the past week. That's when I'm
yeah.
like, okay, I'm not touching that guy.
I forget the name of the Boston guy that I had for a couple. AJ Greer.
Yeah, yeah, AJ Greer.
Uh, like I knew he was like a third line kind of guy, but it's just everyone on Boston was scoring, so I was willing to ride that for a little bit. But I dropped him today because like I think he had like 6 points in 7 games to start the season, and then he's done nothing since. So I'm like, okay, that ride's over. Time to go. Right. I think it's like so important to kind of be like you said, like who's got a track record of constant production versus who do you just want to ride for a week?
I'm looking at his stats though. He had 17 penalty minutes 2 games ago. So I don't know. Maybe I don't know if you had him active.
I had him benched last week, but I won truck anyway.
And yeah, I picked up Charlie Coyle, but I'm probably gonna drop him because I didn't realize Marchand was already back, and that's
Yep.
gonna affect a lot of like DeBrusque. It's gonna affect Coyle. Oh no, well, but we had that debate in a chat where Gobby was telling us we disagreed with him, me, you, and Barry, about how like some coaches might keep players in their starting roles because of their heart start. I just don't see it. No matter what Lindholm does, McAvoy is just like way more valuable defensively. He's a franchise defenseman, and a lot of these like when Ekblad comes back, Montour is over a point per game, but he's not going to keep his slot. It's just that you have to be so like. It's just that you have to be, I guess, an up and coming player yourself to like supersede the next guy. But when you're a veteran, you're not gonna supersede someone that's like been the franchise guy, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think it really depends on the coach in that circumstance, and you really have to know the team and the player. Because like I picked up who did I pick up today? Um, I specifically picked up a guy. Oh, I picked up the guy who's playing on Washington's first line with Ovechkin, and he's not getting power play time, but they have injuries or whatever, and they put a guy on Ovechkin's line. So I'm like, okay, I'll pick him up. I don't expect anything else from him. But then on the opposite side, Nicholas Roy with the Vegas Knights, third line guy, but he is getting power play time. So it's like you really kind of have to know the team and know what the coach is trying to do to make the educated assumption of if the guy's worth playing or not. It's not just oh he was hot, he'll still be hot and still be on the line.
Yeah, I think a lot of value is found in these third liners that get like randomly get power play one time. Um, I think the only thing we want to comment on is in like I've said it before. I don't actually watch as many games as John and Mike Blondin, Blondet, because I'm just a stat geek. I just built my team that way, and so not a lot of the things that I do that have made me successful is like rocket science or anything. It's just we still have teams that have a tendency to keep uh, people that are struggling for far too long. For
Yep.
example, like I think after the fourth or fifth round, like let's say in our draft, most of the guys are marginal and borderline guys that can be dropped. I mean, you drop Garland, no one's picked them up, so I guess so probably a good idea to have dropped him. Um,
Yep.
but obviously he has potential to get back to his like 30 goal scoring pace or whatever. But so most of these people are just people that you're throwing darts at, and if they're struggling for the first 10, if they have like 1 to 2 points in the first 10 games, I think still people are hesitant to drop some of them, but you should because there's a lot of people on the waiver wire that started at like a point per game pace. Most of them won't keep that pace, but at least at that point they're a better dart throw than a lot of guys that you currently have. Is the way I see it.
Yeah, like when you and I were arguing about goaltending, like you really opened my eyes to just how dumb the draft is in a lot of ways. Because it's like most of the guys I drafted, I've dropped already. So it's like you really were right about it's throwing darts and just hoping to hit gold with a couple of guys, and then do everything else through waiver wire, and you're fine. Uh, so yeah, totally agree.
So, for example, I drafted Yanni Gord, who's actually pretty. I mean, maybe someone picks him up, but he has no power play time. He has 5 points in the last 3 games. He actually has 7 points in the last 6 games. But to start off, he was like, 1 point in his first four. No power play time, which I expected him to have. But drafted him, dropped him, and I picked up, Kevin Hayes just because he was like on a point per game pace and still is, 11
Yep.
points in 11 games. And it's just like, I'm just saying it's not like I think Kevin Hayes, like I have this like hockey knowledge that he's specifically really talented. I'm just looking, sorting through. I picked him and Velarde, and they're both still on my team. They're both point per game, and so there are those random gems. Like obviously, both of them are unlikely to keep it up. I'll be happy if they end with like I guess 60 points. Right at that point, then they're just they've contributed a lot. But
Yep.
that's why we make I make fun of. I didn't really make fun, but I'm like, Gas, you gotta pick up more guys. You have a lot of guys that are like 1 point in like 12 games or something like that, and you actually have a reserve spot. I mean, you're not doing enough. Yamamoto has 3 points in 11 games. He's droppable in my opinion. So
Yeah.
this is like this is the type of dart throw that you could have replaced with another one that's hotter, right? That has so that's
Yeah.
how I see it.
Like I don't know if it was Gas or it could have even been Calvin that I saw had an empty reserve spot today. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? Like I last week I picked up, I think it was Derek Brassard, the Ottawa center. I picked him up and put him on my bench right away, and it was only because of that rumor that he was going to replace Norris.
Mm.
And like I had no intention of playing him last week. I picked him up, put him on my bench right away, and I think I dropped him today. And it was just all the idea of like, hey, if he does play on that line and ends up producing, I have him as an option. It's like you shouldn't only be looking at your starters to drop. You should be looking at your bench to drop. Like just always look for improvements.
Speaking, oh yeah, no, Calvin and Mike both have once reserve spot open, and
Total waste.
and Calvin's been bitching and moaning about injuries and suspensions. What do you think about that?
I so funny. Like I picked up Stalick because I was desperate for goaltending that week, right? And
Yeah.
then Stalick got hurt. He got hit in the head, whatever. And like I'm never probably going to play Stalick again, but he's on my injured reserve because that opened up another spot for me to pick up somebody else. And if Stalick comes back and he's great, then at least I have him. It's like Calvin though. Just I mean, Couturier is on the IR, but if he's got another guy that should go to the IR, drop Couturier, put the other guy in there, and stop complaining.
No, but then he'll have two open slots because he already has one. He doesn't. He still needs to fill up his roster first.
Yeah.
All right. I think that does it. I think yeah, in general, people should be more active still on teams. But I think man, you've been doing something every week as well, so that's cool to see.
I'll tell you what, like, because this is the first year where I'm really like online when the games are being played. I'm watching like 3 games a night. And like I am not going to claim that I'm some like savant hockey scout
Yeah.
that is recognizing talent and picking guys up because shut up. Uh, I'm not like I don't know talent when I see it. Like, sure, if a guy scores, sure, but like what that's done for me though is I see guys who are putting up points and I'm on top of it. I wasn't like that last year or the year before, so I think that's helped me a lot.
Mm. And like yeah, and sometimes like I said, like I have to. I mean, I didn't really want to drop middle stat, but sometimes like I have to. You gotta, and then you recommended it to Mike, so
It's funny because I put out that video and Mike picked up Middlestat like an hour later. I'm like, oh, okay. And
right.
for sure, like now that we're having this conversation, like I forget who you mentioned earlier. Oh, Connor Garland. Connor Garland's going to the good-looking guys. Watch for it.
There's a few guys I like on the waiver wire. The problem is they're all left wingers, and I realized that I'm never going to play anyone outside of my four that I have, which makes it
Yeah.
what makes it just like an injury replacement guy. Anyways, let's get to the little trade I had. You can grill me on it, I guess. Cam Talbot
Okay.
for a second.
So you brought this up to me when the trade discussion was happening, and I was kind of like iffy on it, right? And so you traded Cam Talbot for a second round pick,
Yeah,
and if considering your first place right now, I believe, considering your first place, it's a very unbarrage like move to be picking up picks for next year. So you're definitely picking it up to use as like, hey Gobby, you want another second round pick, something like that, right?
right. But you
And
milked them already.
yeah, uh, so but like it's an interesting but weird trade for me because like Ben doesn't need goaltending too badly, but okay, he wants options maybe. You seem to need goaltending more than he does because I mean, statistically, your goaltending hasn't been at the same level as Ben's. So like my fear, if I was in your shoes, is that you're going to get to the trade deadline and be like, oh shit, I need goaltending, and then you're going to be trading what you gained for more goaltending. Like I just don't totally get the what the whole outcome of this is going to be.
So I I understand it from Ben's standpoint. Like Samsonov's up for at least a week, probably a lot more. We don't know.
Yeah.
And he's in seventh right now, tied for seventh. And he feels he needs a stopgap with Sorokin to be able to maintain playoff spot status. So that makes sense that he wants to trade for Talbot, who so far had like he replaced Forsberg in a game, let no goals in, and he had a good game against Philly. So there, and he likes Ottawa. So, and I liked Ottawa before the season started, which is why I drafted Talbot. From
Yeah.
my standpoint, it's like I realize my mentality is basically before and in the middle of the season, I want to have a lot of goalie options, but by the end of by the start of the playoffs, ideally, I only and fingers crossed that neither gets injured. Ideally, I only hold two, and the reason behind that, what I've realized, um, maybe was it last year or was in the playoffs, you want basically maximum forward defense flexibility. You want,
Okay.
right, like and now it's going to be longer. You want as many games as possible where you're playing, where you have options of guys playing 4 games over two, where you can like replace, like, you're going to play, I don't know who, John in round one or whatever, Mike in round two, and you want to be able to shift a lot. And goalies, usually you're not, it's rare that you have three goalies that are so close together that you're pondering between them, and but for forwards it can make a huge difference, like upgrading from a 2 game guy to a 4 game guy.
Mm-hmm.
And ideally I see I land on Allmark plus whoever, whether that's Bob at this point, whether it's someone I trade for with a second round pick for, whether it's Martin Jones, whether it's Matt Murray's coming back this week, so who knows? Or Skinner, because Campbell's been terrible. So basically I have so many goalie options that might pan out at this point, and I do want to narrow it down to like 2 or 3 by the end of the season, by the end
Yep.
of our regular season. So it makes sense for me to trade some excess, get that flexibility, and because me, like that extra room is valuable to someone like me that like really wants to hunt for even more value.
Fair enough. And like I was thinking of the trade, not really thinking of how many goalies you had on your fucking team. Goalie limit, guys. Goalie limit. Uh yeah, you've got Bobrovsky, Allmark, Jones, Wedgwood, Murray, and Skinner. Like you've got more guys who can play net than Calvin has on his bench. So uh like realistically, like your two best goalies right now are Allmark and Skinner. Uh
Yeah.
like goals against adjusted saves Wins is a different story because Skinner hasn't played as much, but you've got 3 or 4 options going into the playoffs. So I guess trading away your 7th best goalie, I guess, yeah. Jesus Christ, 7 goalies.
And I looked at, but they're all like iffy, right? They're not like I just kept Wedgwood because Ottinger's injured. Once he's back, Wedgwood's off my team. Martin Jones is speculation that the Kraken
Fucking
might
Kraken.
actually be better than average, and that they sucked last year because of mainly Grubauer sucking. And like, there's a lot of question marks. And Samsonov plays so well that Murray might not, do anything. So we'll see. But yeah,
I
I
didn't
like.
realize that Jones had 6 wins in 10 games.
Yeah. The Kraken's been cracking, and that's why
Sneaky.
you picked up Morgan Geeky, man.
I did. I mean, he's got a little bit of point production in the last couple of weeks, and it's like I said, and I'm not fooling. I'm not beating Dan in truck this week, so I benched my truck forwards, and I picked up anybody who could put up a point.
Dan just picked up Nick Ritchie, which I've had on and off all the time, but again, a left winger that I couldn't justify ever playing over my 4 guys, but he's always there as a truck guy too, and the fact that is he playing him, and he's playing against you, so that's even more truck. And let's see his preview. Like him, he's the one guy where it's just like, what are like his preview says he's against, it's like something ridiculous against you, like 180 truck, and you have 141. I'm at 128. Not touching that.
The the preview has changed. I don't know exactly when they recalculate it, but I was checking it yesterday and it was 7-3 for me, and now it's 9-1 for me. Some changes that he and I have done today have shifted the preview balance in my favor.
Yeah, 9-1. I see it.
Yeah. Like I gave up on truck. I'm not trying to go for 200 truck for the week. So we'll see.
He's the only guy where I actually flat out would give up. Only person, and then focus on the other categories and have at it.
Yep.
And then, but him in response, he should just like switch it up a bit, maybe. He doesn't need that much truck.
I mean, it's overkill. It really is. Like, trade. Who's he got here that he could trade? God damn it! So many truck guys. Like, you don't need Martin Fahervery. Trade him to a dude like Barry. Get a defenseman that can actually score points.
Yeah, and then he has Adam Larson on top.
Yeah,
that's overkill. But okay, let's finish with just trade theory in general. How's it been working out? I guess for you, like I've been enjoying it. Trading, just finding people with different needs than me. Like I looked at Ben's team, I didn't see anyone that what I wanted was potentially a mid-tier guy with some amount of truck. He didn't necessarily have that. Everyone else was like way better, like Kucherov and other stuff that I wouldn't think about trading for. And then he offered a 2nd round pick, which makes sense because I didn't want anyone on his roster. He needed a goalie. Bam, easy deal. We traded, and it's last year. I thought it was pretty good too to be able to find people with specific needs.
If you need a mid-tier guy with a bit of truck, I have Connor Sheary. I just picked him up off waiver wires. He's got 7 points in 13 games and 27 truck. Come on, let's go.
Reminds me, where's Tanev at?
Somebody has him. Trade theory, I'll say, like, I feel like it's a little early in the season for most guys to be talking trade. The
Mm.
two guys who've really chatted with me about trade is Gabi and Ben. Ben was seeing if I was interested in, I think, in Jake Allen. Uh, and that was after my goalie rant. But now I'm feeling a lot more comfortable with my Huso Vanacek tandem. And, you know, if I see a week where Varlamov is due to get a start, then, you know, if anything happens to, like, you know, let's say Huso has a really bad week coming up, then I could play Varlamov in his place. So I'm not looking for goalies at the moment, but if I see one at a good price, I would consider it. Uh, so that kind of just stopped right there. But you know, talking with Gabi, like, and talking with both of them, I feel like the trade conversations have been a lot better so far this year. People kind of, I mean, now let's just say I haven't had Calvin offer me anything, so let's wait. But the trade conversations have been better. Like they're not just like, hey, what will it take to get your first round pick? It's been more like back and forth and consideration for both teams' needs. So that's been enjoyable. But I wanted to ask you because like you trading Talbot at this stage for a second round pick, like, and let's tie this into the last conversation I wanted to have. For a guy like Gasse, when is the right time to sell the farm? When is the right time to start wheeling and dealing? Uh, and I'll just start this off with like the reason why I went for Zabinajad before week 2 was I saw how I was doing against Jake. I felt good about my Husto trade because he won that first game and I had Hustery. Uh, and I was like, okay, if I'm going to be a top 8 team and I'm not going to have a chance at the draft lottery anyway, trade my first round pick for next year, get Zabinajad, try to do everything I can this year to win. Uh, so I like my theory as a team that's trying to compete is you trade for pieces early so you can get the most out of them. If you're looking for like keeper pieces, uh, whereas if I was in Gas's position, um, who's Facebook user that just commented on our thing? Uh, the but if I was in Gas's position, um, like, do you sell right now to try and tank as hard as you can, or do you wait for better opportunities?
Well, now at least we know that the bottom four are going to have equal chances, so he doesn't have
Yeah,
to be so desperate. But to your about when to trade, like I agree with your spot and my spot right now. Whereas like the theory is that I think we've talked about this before, and you agreed. Whereas like the top teams have the luxury to wait because of the record. I could just wait for my needs to come up and injuries, and then I can patch them. I don't have to try to improve my team and then waste all my resources patching up later. Whereas some people in when you're in the mid tier team like yourself before the season, you want to do that early. You want to vault yourself to the top, and that's why Ben needs to make this trade now. He wants Talbot to potentially be just as good as Samsonov or be like that stopgap for the next couple of weeks for him to maintain that playoff spot. And for me, trading at this point was more. I'm not exactly sure when someone will want like it's like a perfect opportunity where someone wants Talbot and Talbot is at his reasonably higher range of value because if he sucks in the next couple of games, his value tanks completely. He could also do really well, but just like a specific scenario where like Ben really wants Talbot at this specific moment, and I'm not really sure this type of trade is going to happen in the middle of the season, which is why I did it. Now for Mike, I mean, I don't know. I think I would just focus on gathering as much assets as possible, which means like add dropping more guys and that
yeah.
can potentially be tradable to teams like me and you for even like fourth, fifth round picks next year. That's like very possible. Um, so I would be doing that, and but he has time. there's more playoff teams this year, and yeah, I think he has a lot of time to trade away and figure out his keepers. He's already like he posted in a chat with us that he already set on his keepers and his maybes, and I mean some of the choices are are interesting to say the least. But at least, yeah, it's not like it's a easier question than last year where you really had to figure out. You probably want to ship your guys early. I'm trying to think.
I so I mean, something you said there triggered for me. Gas, you can't have empty bench spots if you're really looking to be a seller, because you need to pick up guys, anybody who might be of interest to somebody else. If you're leaving them out there on waiver wire, then you're not getting any picks for that. Someone else is just picking them up for free. So come on, Gas, get on top of it, put down the Marvel Snap, and focus on what's important here. Okay. Uh, but yeah, I mean, it does change things that, he doesn't have to tank hard, but it's like, I'm looking at Gas's team. Hold on. I closed it. Let me open it back up. It's like who, and the whole keeper thing he shared with us. Yeah, you can pry Marvel Snap from my cold dead hands. Marvel Snap is not going to help you look at yourself in the mirror in the morning. Anyway, uh, like who can he trade bait with at this point? Like Dano, I'm not trading for a guy who's got 8 points in 14 games playing for the Kings. Kerfoot, I mean, 5 points in 13 games. And he's a Toronto guy, which half of us won't take. Matthews, anyone would trade for Matthews, but he'd be dumb to trade Matthews away. Middlestat was just on free agency. Beauvillier, 7 points and 11. Bunting, again, Toronto guy. And this gets to the thing you wanted to talk about. Too many guys from the same team. He's got 3 guys from Toronto.
Middlestat, like
4.
that's interesting. Like
Riley.
Middlestat can turn out to be a keeper even, or even a trade bait by the trade deadline. It's possible. He has 7 special team points. It's like if Buffalo keeps playing well and he maintains his power play time, who knows? So like that's the type of guy like he needs to keep picking up and hope to sell to one of us.
Yeah.
Um,
But like, and it's funny, like he has Alec Martinez too, who I had last year, but he did nothing because he was hurt last year. Toronto was supposed to be good. Okay, so
his best truck guy, but 1 point in
Ed,
13 games.
yeah, Edmonton is supposed to be good, and I had Puljarvi. I had who did I have? I still have all of them. Puljarvi. I had. Where's my damn team? Darnell Nurse, and then I traded for Ryan Nugent Hopkins. So I got 3 guys on Edmonton, and none of the 3 are the 2 that you really want. But I'm benching Puljarvi at this point because he's doing nothing. Whereas, playing who's Gasse got again? It's like if they're doing nothing, don't play them. That's the thing. Like Toronto's not been good, so.
But he just has a few guys. Like if he decides not to keep them, like Marchessault, Riley Smith, if he keeps doing well, Uyghur, even though he's been sad about him. I mean, he's got enough truck, good plus minus, has 0 special team points, but actually is getting power play time. So he might be someone that turns it around. Actually has a chance of turning around. So like he has a few, and then he has a bunch of guys he kept that are all injured, which is a reason why he's been struggling. Hartman, Schmaltz, and Ehlers, all 3 on IR, and would have boosted his offense significantly. Because when I last checked, he's basically bottom in the bottom tier, bottom 3-4 teams for goals and assists. Um, but yeah, we'll wrap it up with the topic you brought up where I was talking to Gobby, where I think Barry's mentioned this in the past, where he also doesn't like owning too many players on the same team. But I
Yep.
also, my retort was like, there are exceptions. You might want to do that when you're the less talented team, because then you want that variance, that chance for you to overcome someone that you think is a juggernaut. But when you're a juggernaut and you have superior assets, that's when you want to spread it more, so lower variance, because your team is so good anyways. You don't need to stack. But I can see reasons to stack when you are the weaker team.
Yep.
And I also read an article, fantasy article, that made me think of a strategy I never thought of before, is like stacking future underrated first liners from like teams that are upcoming teams. So what I mean is, in the past couple of years, like some of the top first liners, like top, not first liners, but like top, like the top line of certain teams have stayed consistent and have been dominant, and you would have wanted to own all three. So we're talking about Marchand, Bergeron, Pasternak. We're talking about Hintz, Robertson, Pavelski. There's like McDavid, Draisaitl, whatever, Evander Kane. So there's all these like lines that you want to own, and an article say like you might want to like stack on the up and coming Arizona guys if they get Bedard, because if they get Bedard, that boosts guys like Keller and other young, potentially whoever the future first line, and they might be really good for a long time. So I never thought of it like that, and because like the Leafs are doing fine if you have the top three guys. It's like the other guys that suck. If you have Marner, which I have, I'm not complaining.
Yep.
John Tavares, not complaining. So like it's all about finding like the future first line. And I wonder if that's Mike has Keller, and like if they get Bedard, and it's Bedard, Keller plus I don't know who, Schmaltz, I don't know, Gunther, my guy, I don't know. But that might be interesting, because or like you had the maybe the Red Wings have a stacked first line, and like it's okay to have all three, and then you can trade one of them because they have, if you want to decrease your variance from a week to week standpoint. But like no one's going to complain about having too many Avalanche players over the past few years, right? You live with the fact that they might have an off week. You play the odds that they're just going to crush most of the time, and you're happy. So if you're able to target a team that's sucking right now but can become an offensive juggernaut, maybe there's an edge to be gained there, especially when
I,
you're outside of the playoffs.
I think there's multiple ways at this idea, right? Because I think you're right that if you do stack like a whole line from a team, then you're playing with variance. Because if they go cold for a week, you go cold for a week. And I think, going to your Colorado point, I think that's what happened with John against me. Colorado played New Jersey. Vanacek got a shutout, and John lost in the offensive categories to me. So I think if you're a team like, let's say, Dan is not an offensive juggernaut. He's relying on goaltending and truck, but he might pull out a crazy offensive week if he's stacked up on one good offensive team.
Yeah.
But if you're a team like John, I think you want to avoid that, because you can't let that happen to you in the playoffs. But John is loaded up on Colorado right now. So if it happens to him, it's the same story he's had for the last 18 years or whatever, right?
Yeah. Um, but that would be interesting, because that would increase trades for to happen, because you want teams to want different things. So for example, Dan, he has Dylan Larkin, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
Detroit main guy. Like maybe like to boost his chances, maybe he needs to trade for their line mates. He's playing like two Coyotes this week against you. Like maybe he has to up it up and just like say, fuck it, just play. Um, Actually, he has Andrew Kopp from Detroit also. So it's like, there is reason to stack teams, as we've now discussed here, in the current year. And I think as a rebuilding team, there's a reason to stack future, currently underrated teams that might spike in the next few years. I mean, if you stacked you'd be looking pretty smart right now if you picked up a bunch of the New Jersey guys a few years ago, right? Like Heishier was available in the draft in like the last round. Calvin was smart to, or not last round, but in the middle of the draft last year. Or you picked up Pratt, and now they're looking like they might spike, and then but it's a little too late to do that. Like for Buffalo, their top guys, it's a little too late to do that because now it looks like they're going up there. But whoever, I mean, if Bedard goes to the Habs, well, but the current best players are already good players, so it's not like you can get Suzuki and Cole Caulfield. But
That's the thing. It's like you
yeah,
pretty much have to have that third line prospect kind of guy who's going to suddenly graduate when the team offloads their older crappy talent, right? That's the way to do it. Like, I have Mason Marchment with the Ducks right now. He
with the
is playing on the
Stars,
fourth.
no.
No, he's with the Ducks. Sorry, Mason Marchment is with the Stars. You're right. McTavish. That's what I'm thinking of.
Oh, right. Yeah.
McTavish with the Ducks. He's playing on the fourth line, so I sent him back to my farm. Maybe the Ducks pick up some top players in free agency next year, and he gets somebody to play with on the second or first line. I think that's the path to that more than I think Robert Thomas is maybe the best example of your scenario where it's like
Right.
promising prospect, a guy that I was willing to drop, Barry was willing to drop, and then I just happened to pick him up at the luckiest time. Right. I think maybe that's the kind of guy where it's like, I don't know if you keep him on your farm a little bit longer, hoping he pans out, or you just keep an eye on what's the situation with this guy, when's the right time.
All right. I think that's. Or Mike, if you're listening still, trade for more Coyotes. Let's just start this experiment. Like no one likes
Yeah.
them. No one wants them anyway. I don't really know. Rock Stallion always like stacks them or has a bunch of really terrible plus minus guys because, like you said, you've mentioned a lot of the Rock Stallion's weakness is like he's really good in goals, but he just needs to work harder on winning some of the other categories. And he was last in plus minus by far last year, and he's last starting this year because he has like guys like um Gasse, Arizona guy who has like always terrible plus minus, I think.
Yeah.
-9. So, and then he has a bunch of guys that are just always like click his team. Like all his guys are minuses, and at this point, I've also said this: if you're totally fucked in plus minus, you might as well, I guess, acquire talented bad plus minus guys at a discount from other teams. Like they'll get,
I,
you know,
I'm looking at the plus minus roadie standings right now. So I'm number one, you're number two, Barry's number three. And then from fourth place down, everybody's in the negatives.
yeah. Uh, almost every guy he has is a minus. Anyways, hopefully, I know Barry always gives us a listen, so hopefully he has some strategy talks or retorts or replies. And we'll catch you in the next one. This was fun. I'm really happy I did this morning. It's a great start to my day. Thank you a lot, Derek.
Oh, my pleasure. Anytime, Car. I'm your number one fan and number one guest.
All right. All right. See you guys later, and I'll talk to you about Marvel Snap on Facebook.
Take care.
Ciao.
Bye bye.